He defended the enemy's child with his own body. Now the alien mother wants to claim him. The sky above the planet Surin 4 burned red with the light of distant suns. Smoke and fire twisted across the horizon, filling the air with the scent of burning metal and scorched earth. On the ground, the remains of human and Valan machinery lay scattered, twisted and torn apart from the endless battles that had raged for days. Humanity and the Valans had fought over this world for months. It was a strategic point in the galaxy, rich with rare minerals, but for Captain Elias Thorne, it had become much more than that. It had become a battlefield that would test him in ways no training could prepare him for. Elias crouched behind a broken wall of steel, his armor scratched and scorched, his breathing heavy. His rifle hummed with residual heat from continuous firing. Around him, the sounds of war echoed, distant explosions, alien shrieks, and the relentless chatter of human soldiers calling for reinforcements. Every mission until now had been about survival, strategy, and precision. But today, survival had a face. A small face, wide-eyed and terrified. He saw her first from the corner of his eye. The child. A Valan girl no more than 7 by human counting, with iridescent blue skin that shimmered in the firelight. Her eyes, wide and frightened, scanned the battlefield as if trying to find her parents, or perhaps trying to find a safe place in a world that had none. She was alone. Elia's first thought was disbelief. Humans had been taught to see the Valans as ruthless enemies, creatures without mercy or compassion. And yet here she was, hiding in the rubble, trembling, a small being caught in the crossfire of a war she could not understand. "Move!" a voice barked behind him. It was Sergeant Myra Dalka, Elia's second-in-command. "We have orders to advance. Leave the target zone clear." Elias glanced back at his team. They were ready, disciplined, and determined to follow orders without question, but he couldn't bring himself to turn away. The child was there, helpless and alone. Something deep inside him refused to let her die, not on his watch. The battlefield shifted suddenly. Plasma fire streaked through the air, a green bolt aimed directly at the small figure of the child. Time slowed. Elia's instincts kicked in. He dove forward without hesitation, pushing the girl out of the path of the blast. The energy bolt struck him squarely in the chest, throwing him against a jagged piece of metal. Pain shot through him, blinding and sharp. His armor had absorbed most of it, but not all. He could feel his body screaming under the impact, bones aching and chest tight. "Elias!" Myra shouted, but he barely heard her. All that existed in that moment was the child, safe for the first time. Her small hands clutched at his shoulder, her body pressed against his as he dragged them both behind a shattered wall. The battlefield raged on around them. Valan soldiers and human troops collided in chaotic bursts of fire and energy. But Elias barely noticed. All he could see was her terrified face, the fragile life he had saved with his own body. When the dust settled, the child peered at him cautiously. Her eyes were wide, shimmering with tears. She spoke in the soft, musical language of her people, words Elias could not understand. But the tone was clear: fear, confusion, and something else he could not place. Gratitude, relief, perhaps a mixture of both. Elias managed a weak smile. "It's okay," he said simply. Words felt small in the chaos, but it was all he could offer. The child nodded slowly, clutching his arm like it was the only thing keeping her alive. "Sir, we need to move." Myra's voice was tense. She had her rifle raised, scanning the battlefield for any remaining threats. "Command says to retreat. Now." Elias looked at the child. Leaving her behind was not an option. He couldn't do it. Against orders, against protocol, he made the decision that would change everything. "She comes with us," he said firmly. Myra hesitated, uncertainty in her eyes. "Sir, she's a Valan. What if?" "I don't care," Elias interrupted. "I don't leave children behind. That's not who I am." With that, he lifted her carefully, holding her close. Her small body trembled against his chest. She did not resist. Perhaps she instinctively understood that this human soldier, her supposed enemy, was now her protector. They moved quickly, weaving through the debris and chaos. Every step was dangerous. Plasma fire whizzed past them, and the screams of wounded soldiers and dying machines filled the air. Elia's armor was damaged from the earlier blast, making every movement painful, but he refused to falter. The child's safety was more important than his own life. Finally, they reached the perimeter where human forces were regrouping. Elia set the child down gently, keeping a protective hand on her shoulder. Commanders and soldiers stared in shock. "Captain Thorne," a commanding officer barked, his face pale. "What are you doing?" "That's a Valen child." "She's a child," Elias replied simply, "and she was about to die. I saved her." The room fell silent. In the middle of a war fueled by hatred and revenge, here was a human man risking everything for an enemy child. It was an act almost unheard of, a spark of humanity in a battlefield of chaos. The child looked up at him, eyes wide and curious. She didn't smile, but there was something in her gaze that Elias could not ignore. A bond had formed in those few moments of shared terror, a bond that transcended species, war, and hatred. Elias knew that saving her was only the beginning. There would be consequences, questions, perhaps even enemies among his own people. And the Valens would not forget this act, not the child and certainly not her mother. But in that moment, all he felt was a strange, unfamiliar sense of purpose. Protecting this small, fragile life was worth any risk. As night fell over the red battlefield, the human and the child sat together near the remnants of a destroyed war machine. Elia's wounds throbbed, and exhaustion threatened to pull him under. Yet he stayed awake, keeping watch over the girl. Somewhere in the distance, he could hear the low hum of Valen ships searching the area. He knew they would return. And when they did, they would find that he had crossed a line they never expected a human to cross. Elias tightened his grip on the child, whispering softly, "You're safe. I've got you." For the first time since the war began, he felt something he hadn't felt in years: hope. And he knew, deep in his heart, that the actions of a single human could ripple through the galaxy in ways no one could predict. The night stretched on. The child slept against his chest, exhausted from fear and shock. Elias watched the stars, thinking of the battles yet to come, the enemies yet to face him, and the strange bond that had begun in the midst of destruction. He did not know what the future held, but he did know one thing: he would defend her with his life. And somewhere out there, among the stars, a mother was searching for her lost child, unaware that the one who had saved her was human. The morning light broke through the shattered walls of the human camp on Surin 4, painting the ruins in pale gold. Captain Elias Thorne sat quietly near a supply crate, watching the Valen child, Lyra, as she nervously touched the jagged rocks around her. She had barely slept, haunted by the screams and fire of the previous night. Despite the chaos, she had learned to trust him. Her small hands clutched his arm every few minutes, as if holding onto him could guarantee safety. Elias rubbed his jaw, trying to shake the exhaustion from his body. His armor was patched with whatever scraps he could find, but the pain in his chest from the plasma blast still throbbed. Yet, even with all the injuries and fatigue, his mind was not on himself. It was on her. Lyra had changed something inside him, a flicker of a feeling he hadn't allowed himself in years. A feeling humans called responsibility. And then the alarm sounded. It was not human. Elias recognized the vibration in the air, subtle but unmistakable. The Valen ships were near. "Sir, incoming," Sergeant Myra Dalka shouted, pointing to the horizon. Sleek alien ships hovered, their hulls shimmering with bioluminescent light. Their movements were deliberate, controlled, and terrifyingly quiet. There was no mistaking it. These were not raiders, they were hunting. Elias stood slowly, signaling his team to cover positions. He positioned himself between the child and the approaching Valens, his hand on the rifle. But he knew the truth. This was not a fight the humans could win. From the lead ship, a figure descended. She moved with a grace that seemed almost unnatural, her tall frame cutting a perfect silhouette against the red dawn. Her blue skin glimmered under the sunlight, iridescent and smooth. Her eyes, like liquid silver, fixed on Elias and Lyra. There was no mistaking her identity. This was Kelara, the mother. The air grew tense. The soldiers around Elias shifted uneasily, weapons raised, unsure if they were about to witness a battle or something far stranger. Kelara landed lightly, her boots barely touching the ground. Her gaze swept over the ruins, her eyes stopping on Elias. Slowly, deliberately, she approached. Every step radiated authority. "Captain Elias Thorne," she spoke in Valen, but her words were translated instantly by the human comms. "You have interfered with my child's fate." Elias straightened. "I saved her," he said simply, his voice steady. "She's a child. She had no part in this war." Kelara's eyes narrowed. There was anger there, yes, but also something else, curiosity. "You have violated our laws," she said. "Yet you risked your life for her. Why?" Elias shrugged, though he could feel the weight of his own armor pressing down on him. "Because she's innocent. Because no one deserves to die like that." Kelara's expression shifted. Among the Valens, acts like his were almost unthinkable. Their culture valued strength and survival above all. Saving an enemy child with no reward was unheard of. And yet here he was, alive and breathing. She knelt slightly to examine Lyra, her fingers brushing over the child's hair. Lyra stiffened but did not cry. There was recognition in her eyes, her mother, yes, but also a hint of fear. Kelara's gaze returned to Elias. "You are bound to her now," Kelara said, her voice steady and commanding. "In Valen culture, saving a child creates a bond that cannot be broken." Elias blinked. "Bound? What do you mean?" "You saved her life," Kelara replied, "and in doing so you owe her protection. You owe me obedience until that bond is honored." The human soldiers murmured uneasily. Myra stepped forward. "Sir, this is insane. She's saying we have to what? Serve the Valens." Elias held up a hand. "I don't know exactly what she means yet. But I know one thing, I won't leave the child's side. I saved her. I won't regret it." Kelara studied him silently. Then, in a swift motion, she activated a device on her wrist. A holographic map of the planet and surrounding space appeared. Small symbols flickered, showing patrols, alien units, and dangerous zones. "This child is not safe here," Kelara said. "Your human base will be attacked again. The radicals, those who believe in total extermination, will not forgive this act. If you continue to protect her alone, you will die, and so will she." Elias clenched his fists. "Then tell me what I'm supposed to do. I can't just hand her over." Kelara's eyes softened slightly. "You will come with us. You will come to the Valen capital. There you will learn our ways, and the bond you created will be tested. If you survive, if you honor it, then you may return, but you will not leave her unprotected." Myra's jaw dropped. "You can't just take him. He's a human soldier." Kelara's gaze hardened. "I am not asking, human, I am commanding. If you resist, you endanger the child." Elias looked at Lyra. Her small hands clutched at his armor. Her eyes were wide, innocent, trusting. He felt the weight of responsibility press down on him heavier than any armor or weapon ever could. "All right," he said finally, his voice calm but firm. "I'll go with you, but this doesn't mean I'll forget my people or my duties." Kelara inclined her head. "That is acceptable. You must learn, Captain Thorne. You must prove your honor." The next hours were tense. Humans and Valens worked side by side in a fragile truce while preparations were made for their departure. Kelara had brought transport ships large enough to carry the humans and the child safely, and yet the atmosphere remained charged with uncertainty. During the journey through space, Elias observed Kelara more closely. She was not cruel, not exactly. She was precise, disciplined, and bound to her own sense of honor. Yet there was something almost feral in her intensity, a mother's fierce protection combined with a warrior's command. Elias knew the journey ahead would be difficult, but he also realized it would teach him something about courage, loyalty, and morality he had never experienced. Lyra clung to his side, her small body nestled against him. Elias felt a strange sense of purpose. He had saved her, yes, but now the stakes were even higher. She was more than a child. She was a symbol of a bridge between two worlds, and her life depended on him navigating an alien culture he barely understood. As the stars streaked past the viewport of the Valen ship, Elias allowed himself a brief moment of reflection. This was no longer just a war. This was about trust, honor, and the fragile bonds that could change the course of civilizations. Kelara approached, her expression unreadable. "Captain," she said, "you will not fully understand our culture until you arrive, but know this: actions speak louder than words. Protect her and you will find respect. Fail and the consequences will be severe." Elias nodded. "Understood." And as the ship moved deeper into Valen space, carrying humans, aliens, and a single child saved against all odds, Elias realized that the real battle was just beginning. Not against enemies on the battlefield, but against fear, prejudice, and the challenges of a world utterly alien to him. Somewhere in the darkness of the ship, Lyra slept peacefully, unaware that her mother's expectations, her people's judgments, and the fate of an entire culture rested in the hands of the human who had risked everything to save her. Elias tightened his grip on her small hand. "Don't worry," he whispered. "I've got you. No matter what comes next, I promise." And for the first time in his life, the weight of responsibility felt like so the Valen capital planet, Zithera, glowed in the darkness of space like a living jewel. Its cities shimmered with bioluminescent light, flowing through streets, buildings, and towers as if the planet itself was alive. Ships moved smoothly through the air, leaving trails of iridescent energy behind them. Elias had never seen anything like it. Even after years of fighting across countless planets, nothing prepared him for the strange, almost magical beauty of Zithera. The Valen ship touched down in a landing bay where living architecture twisted into towers of organic material. They pulsated softly with light, breathing in rhythm with the planet itself. Elias felt a shiver run down his spine. He had been warned that Valen culture was strange, but seeing it with his own eyes made it clear. He was no longer in a world that followed human rules. Kelara guided him and Lyra through the city. Every Valen they passed stared silently, their eyes sharp and calculating. Some whispered in their musical language, which the translation device on Elias, comms rendered into words he barely understood. Intruder, human, defying the norms. Lyra clung to his side, her small hand gripping his armor. Her wide eyes followed everything around her. She had been quiet since leaving the human base, overwhelmed by the strange city, the alien people, and the fact that her mother now demanded obedience from the man who had saved her. "Captain," Kelara said, her voice low and commanding, "to remain here and honor your bond, you must understand us. The tests are not meant to punish you, they are meant to show your worth. The child's life is linked to your actions. Fail, and she may be taken from you." Elias nodded, though inside doubt gnawed at him. "I'll do whatever it takes to keep her safe," he said, voice firm. They reached a vast chamber where the first of the trials would take place. The room's floor glimmered with organic light, and strange patterns shifted across the walls, changing color with each passing second. In the center stood a Valen elder, her tall form graceful yet intimidating. "You are a human," the elder said, her voice echoing with authority. "You have interfered with a sacred bond. To remain worthy, you must pass the trial of honor. It is not enough to act bravely. You must act wisely, with respect for life, for strength alone is meaningless." Elias felt the weight of the room press down on him. He glanced at Lyra, who hid slightly behind him. Her small eyes were wide, but there was trust there. He drew a deep breath. This was not just about survival anymore. This was about proving that humanity could hold honor, courage, and compassion even in the midst of war. The trial began. A holographic simulation filled the chamber, presenting challenges designed to test his instincts, morals, and understanding of Valen values. First came illusions of civilians caught in traps, some Valen, some human. Every decision he made would have consequences, simulated but emotionally real. Elias moved carefully, analyzing each scenario. Some illusions tempted him to act selfishly, take the easy path, leave someone behind, focus only on his survival. He refused. He saved every life he could, even when it meant risking virtual harm to himself. The simulations grew more complex. He faced illusions of Lyra in danger, and he felt a pang of fear sharper than anything he had experienced on real battlefields. The emotions were raw, nearly overwhelming, but he kept his focus. Protecting the child, honoring the bond, and showing respect for life, these were his guiding principles. After what felt like hours, the trial ended. The elder stepped forward. "You have acted with honor," she said. "You have proven that humanity can embody courage and compassion. Yet trials are not only for the mind, they are for the body as well." Elias braced himself. Kelara gestured toward a training arena, where Valen warriors moved with speed, precision, and deadly efficiency. He had to spar with them, not to kill, but to demonstrate skill, control, and resilience. At first, the aliens seemed unstoppable. Their movements were fluid, their reflexes faster than anything Elias had seen. He dodged, blocked, and countered, learning their rhythm slowly. Each strike taught him more about their body, their culture, their philosophy of strength. Through the sparring, Elias began to understand something vital. The Valens did not fight for dominance alone. Every movement, every strike, was a lesson in discipline, respect, and survival. They fought to protect their people, to honor life, and to test one another in ways that transcended brute strength. Lyra watched from the sidelines, wide-eyed, clutching Kelara's hand. She did not fully understand what was happening, but she could sense the tension, the challenge, and the quiet respect developing between Elias and her people. Hours passed. Elias pushed his limits, struggling against fatigue and pain, but he never gave up. He moved not only with skill but with intelligence and restraint. He adapted to their patterns, anticipated their moves, and even began to earn the silent respect of the warriors around him. At the end of the training, Kelara approached him once more. Her eyes, usually so sharp and commanding, softened. "You have learned quickly," she said. "Not all humans could survive even the first day here. You have earned the trust of my people, and the life of your bond is safe for now." Elias allowed himself a brief moment of relief. But the peace was short-lived. From deep within the city, alarms began to ring, a low, vibrating hum that shook the ground beneath their feet. Valen radicals, those who opposed Kelara's decision to spare a human and his bond with Lyra, were attacking. Chaos erupted. Warriors sprinted through the streets, energy weapons firing, screams echoing through the luminescent towers. Elias instinctively moved to protect Lyra, shielding her with his body as the radicals closed in. He fought with precision, using his human ingenuity combined with the techniques he had just learned. Despite being outnumbered, he managed to create openings, disarm attackers, and keep the child safe. Kelara joined the fight, moving with lethal grace, defending both her child and the human who had earned her respect. The battle was fierce, but through courage, quick thinking, and determination, Elias and Kelara's forces overcame the radicals. The city was battered but alive. For the first time, Elias realized something profound. Humans and Valens could fight together, not just as allies but as equals, if they respected each other's strengths and values. After the fight, Elias collapsed on the glowing ground, exhausted. Lyra ran to him, wrapping her small arms around his neck. "You're safe," he whispered, hugging her tightly. "I told you I'd protect you." Kelara stood nearby, watching him with a mixture of pride and caution. "You have proven more than your worth in combat," she said. "You have also proven that humans can understand the principles of honor, compassion, and courage. These are the qualities we value most." Elias looked around at the city, the warriors, and the strange, beautiful alien world. He knew the trials were not over. There would be more challenges, more tests of character, and more dangers, both from within the Valen culture and from the ongoing war between their species. But for the first time, he felt a deep sense of belonging, not just as a soldier, not just as a human, but as someone capable of bridging the gap between worlds. Lyra leaned against him, her small face pressed to his chest. "I like it here," she whispered softly. Elias smiled despite his exhaustion. "I like it too," he said, "but we still have a lot to learn." Kelara approached again. "Tomorrow you will face the trial of wisdom," she said. "It will test your mind, your judgment, and your ability to make choices that affect many lives. Remember this, Captain, courage alone is not enough. You must understand the balance between life, honor, and duty." Elias nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders once more. He glanced at Lyra, who seemed to understand in her own way the importance of the challenges ahead. As night fell over the glowing city of Zithra, Elias stood at the edge of a balcony, watching the lights pulse and shift below him. He realized that the true battle was not only against enemies on the battlefield, but against fear, misunderstanding, and the challenge of honoring a bond that crossed the boundaries of species. Somewhere deep within him, he felt a quiet certainty. He would face whatever trials came next, not just for himself, not just for Lyra, but for the chance to prove that humanity could stand with honor even among the stars. And as he looked out over the city, Elias whispered to himself, "No matter what happens, I will not fail her. I will not fail this bond." The night stretched on, full of promise and danger, and Elias knew that the next day would test him in ways he could not yet imagine. But he was ready. The first light of Zithra's twin suns spilled over the city, bathing the bioluminescent towers in golden hues. Captain Elias Thorne stood on a balcony, overlooking the city that had become both a challenge and a revelation. He had survived the trials of honor and combat, navigated alien customs, and fought alongside Kelara to protect Lyra, the child who had unknowingly bound him to her mother and her people. But today was different. Today he faced the trial of wisdom, the final test that would decide the fate of his bond, the child, and possibly the fragile peace between humans and Valans. Kelara met him at the edge of the balcony, her silver eyes sharp and unyielding. "The council awaits you," she said. "This trial is not about strength. It is about judgment, foresight, and the courage to make the right decision when no choice seems safe." Elias nodded. Inside, his heart pounded. He had faced plasma blasts, radical Valans, and the unfamiliar customs of an alien culture. But this was different. This was not about fighting. This was about moral courage. Lyra clung to his side, her small fingers entwined with his. She looked up at him with innocent trust. "Will we be okay?" she asked softly. Elias knelt to her level. "We'll be fine," he whispered. "Just stay close to me and we'll get through it." They entered the council chamber, a massive room with walls that seemed to breathe with living light. Around a circular table sat Valan elders, their expressions solemn. Kelara led Elias and Lyra to the center. The air vibrated with energy, a subtle pressure that seemed to weigh on every decision. "The trial of wisdom begins now," intoned the eldest Valan, her voice echoing with authority. "Captain Thorne, you must make a choice. One that will affect not only your life but the lives of many, human and Valan alike. Choose poorly, and consequences will ripple across the stars." The trial projected scenarios before Elia's eyes. Holographic images of Valan cities under attack, human fleets in danger, and the child caught in impossible situations filled the room. Each scenario forced a decision: save some and risk others, intervene and face political fallout, act morally but jeopardize survival. Every choice carried weight. Elias felt the pressure, sweat beaded on his brow. He realized this trial was more than simulation. It was a reflection of the war, the culture, and the responsibility he had taken on when he saved Lyra. He could feel the consequences of each decision pressing on him as if the entire galaxy watched. He thought of the child first. Lyra had done nothing to deserve fear, pain, or loss. He could not allow her to suffer. But he also saw the humans and Vailans caught in the conflicts around him. He realized that wisdom meant finding balance, protecting her while minimizing harm to others. Hours passed in intense deliberation. Elias weighed each scenario, tested different strategies, and learned from failures. At times, the projections challenged his instincts. Should he save the human fleet at the cost of Vaelan civilians? Should he prioritize Lyra above all else? He felt the tension in his chest, knowing that the wrong choice could destroy his bond, the child, or even peace between species. Kelara watched him silently, her expression unreadable. Elias sensed judgment and curiosity in her gaze. He was learning, but she was watching for the moment he might falter, not in strength but in humanity. Finally, Elias stepped forward, his decision clear. He had devised a plan that balanced risk and protection. He would coordinate a defense strategy that saved Lyra while mitigating casualties on both sides. He would act decisively, showing courage, foresight, and respect for all lives. The chamber fell silent as he presented his plan. Holographic images shifted to illustrate his strategy: a coordinated defense using both human and Vaelan forces, diversions to protect civilians, and a way to remove Lyra from immediate danger. Every element accounted for risk and honor. The elders studied him in silence, then Kelara spoke. "You have acted not only with courage but with wisdom. You understand that life is precious, that honor is action, and that true strength lies in making choices for the greater good, even when personal sacrifice is required." Relief washed over Elias. He felt the weight lift slightly from his shoulders. Lyra, sensing the change, smiled softly, resting her head against his armor. But the trial was not only about judgment. As Kelara signaled, the council presented the final challenge: a direct confrontation with the radical Vaelans who still opposed his presence. They had infiltrated the city, threatening both Lyra and the people of Zithra. This was the ultimate test of everything Elias had learned: wisdom, courage, and honor combined with strategy and action. Elias did not hesitate. Drawing his human weapons and using his knowledge of Vaelan combat techniques, he led a counterstrike against the radicals. His movements were precise, blending human ingenuity with alien martial principles. He anticipated their attacks, protected the innocent, and minimized unnecessary harm. Lyra watched from behind a shielded barrier, clutching Kelara's hand. She could see the determination in Elia's eyes, the willingness to put himself at risk to protect her and others. In that moment, she understood the meaning of his bond. He was not only her protector but her guide in a universe full of danger and morality. The battle raged through the luminescent streets, twisting towers and glowing plazas. Elias coordinated human and Vaelan forces, creating barriers, leading evacuations, and striking only when necessary. Every action was deliberate, measured, and honorable. Finally, the radicals were defeated. They fled or surrendered, realizing they could not overcome the combined strength of Elias' strategy and the unity of the humans and loyal Vaelans. Elias stood amidst the aftermath, his chest heaving, sweat and grime covering him. The city was battered but alive. The child ran to him, throwing her arms around his waist. He lifted her gently, holding her close. Kelara approached, her silver eyes softer than ever. "You have done more than survive," she said. You have proven that humanity can embody the principles we value most: courage, wisdom, and compassion. Your bond with the child is unbreakable. Elias looked at her. What now? Do I stay? Do I go back? Kelara's gaze softened. That is your choice, Captain. You have the right to return to your people. But know this, the bond you created cannot be undone. The child will always see you as her protector, and we will always remember your actions. You have created a bridge between our species, a chance for understanding and peace. Elias looked at Lyra, who looked back at him with trust and love. He felt the weight of responsibility, the call of duty, and the pull of his own people. But he also felt something deeper, a chance to shape a new path, to honor life beyond the battlefield. He made his decision. He would stay, but not entirely. He would act as an ambassador, guiding relations between humans and Vaillands, protecting Lyra, and ensuring that the bond he had formed could serve as a bridge for others. He would not abandon his people, nor would he abandon the alien culture that had tested him and shown him that honor and courage could exist even in the most alien places. Kelara nodded, a rare smile crossing her face. Then you are truly worthy, Captain Elias Thorne. Your choice honors both your people and mine, and the child's life and spirit will be protected. Elias held Lyra close, whispering softly, "We're going to be okay, I promise." For the first time in months he felt peace. Not the fleeting peace of a battlefield, but a deep, enduring sense that his actions had meaning beyond survival, beyond war. He had proven that humanity could rise above fear, hatred, and even prejudice to protect life, create understanding, and forge bonds that could change the course of civilizations. As night fell over Zithra, the twin suns setting in a brilliant display of colors, Elias looked out over the city. Lights pulsed in harmony with the planet, a symbol of life, energy, and resilience. He held Lyra's hand tightly, feeling the warmth and trust between them. Somewhere deep within, he knew this was only the beginning. The war between humans and Vaillands was not over, but a bridge had been built. One human's courage, one child's innocence, and one alien mother's understanding had created the possibility of something greater: hope. And Elias Thorne, the man who had once risked his life for an enemy child, now stood as a symbol of what humanity could achieve: compassion, courage, and honor in the heart of the stars. He smiled at Lyra. "No matter what comes next, we face it together," he said. And for the first time, he truly believed it nothing more than a burden. It felt like destiny.